GBN. Proving Smooth and Live is a 1-hour performance gig every Thursday from 8 p.m. featuring performances from our local musicians and short interviews discussing all things musical. Every Thursday, a different musician and different instrument will be featured, from the violin to the saxophone, to the trumpet, guitar, and steel pan. Our local musicians playing, improvising, and educating us on all genres of music. Join GBN with host musicians Matthias and Shireen, and a special guest every Thursday at 8 p.m. It's Grooving Smooth and Live on GBN. Have you heard about the new Softly bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Softweave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue, available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Softweave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, space air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangement at final moment. As you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest, visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Raise it high up the ladder, let we set it on fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco. A little more limbo, a little more shango.
Good evening once again, and welcome to another Friday evening edition of Oui Culture. For the past 2 weeks, we have been discussing Obia. Quite an interesting topic. It has sparked lots of discussions, on all ends, but nevertheless, it is part of our we've heard about it from children. Maybe some of us have had experiences. Last week we had Dr. Kellen Bob with us. Kellen Bob, sorry. I need to pronounce the gentleman's name correctly. Let's get a spanking for the English gurus out there. So I make sure I have Dr. Bob's name pronounced properly. And of course, last week, very philosophical, quite an interesting one. Well, this evening, we have another very, very special guest with us, and we continue to look at the subject, and I'm sure we're going to get, varying perspectives on the issue. So before I welcome our guest, let's bring in the team because they're here. Doc, good evening.
Well, everything is good, my brother. It's a pleasure being here once again, and along with, I see everyone is here now, the full team, and we have a guest, very interesting guest. It's always a pleasure having dialogue with that guest. So I just want to say good night to all the listeners outside there on all the various medium. Tonight, as we kind of wrapping up on Obia, and it must be a very intake. For the last 2 weeks, I thought the levels we went to, I couldn't imagine we going that far. So again, good night, and let us roll. Let us roll.
Definitely, and we will be rolling. We will be rolling. No, we have to. When you have royalty in the midst, we have to recognize them immediately. Scholar, what you are talking about? You know, I'm talking about the Queen, man. The Queen is here. Hey, Scholar, she have a watermelon on she chest, boy. A watermelon.
One in a melon.
One in a melon. The thing turn out.
The company we advertising.
Scholar.
So what you expect?
Scholar, the thing.
You are done.
You have Obia in that. You have Obia in that.
Forget about Obia. I just want to let Godfrey know that there's no queen without a king, okay? So when you talk to the queen, talk to the king. Okay?
Well, you see, I put the king first and then the queen after. So go ahead. Tell the people good night.
I just want to say good evening to everyone. Good day. Already signed in and growing. Good night to our special guest. I'm really excited and looking forward to the wrap up. I remember the first week, we talk a lot of MESS, things that we hear, things that we don't know, things that we know. You know, and then the next time we had a more historical perspective, and tonight we're going to have a more, I don't know, I'm waiting to see what kind of perspective it will turn out into. We culture have a way of saying it, doing one thing and it ending another way. So,
that's what culture is, you know.
Yes, but you know, I implore everybody to behave. Please behave. Please behave. Okay?
All right. Finley, Shanti Mel in the house, boy.
Boy, tonight I decide I go mind my business and drink alcohol wine.
I drink wine already. We culture.
I mind my business tonight. I listen and I drink alcohol wine.
That's right.
Where is the glass?
We culture here, us man.
The glass. Good night to our special guest. And good night to all of our viewers, our listeners, our Facebook contributors, YouTube contributors, WhatsApp contributors. It will be another interesting night as we wrap up our discussion on the whole issue of Obia. You know, and so I'm really, really looking forward to the discussion and to what our guests would have to put on the table. I want to crave your indulgence to give me a minute to do what Livingston usually does and to throw a little flowers.
Right.
Well, not a flowers, I want to throw a whole flowers garden. Today, McDonald College celebrates 59 years as an institution. Pretty young. Not as old as some of the other well-known, but I think McDonald College has left its mark on the educational landscape, you know, and we have been up there, and I say we because I'm an old McDonald College student, teacher, and McDonald College is like a way of life. You know, once you're at McDonald College, you always have just a SAS, I guess. You know, and McDonald College has really given the country great sons. I mean, like the late Trevor Friday, for example, and of course, the late brother of our guest, who was a passionate past student of McDonald College. Dominic. So I want to just wish the whole McDonald College fraternity happy 59th anniversary, and to the staff, the students, Mr. Handel, the principal, keep the two alive. From the land of the lepers, we seek high things, which is our motto. We belong, will always belong.
Thank you very much indeed. And folks, I guess by now you know who our guest is, and it's none other than Father Gerard Paul, a former SAS student and someone from Tivoli, just like me and Doc, so you can understand.
Conference.
Tivoli, same thing. Same thing.
I will not come back on your show. Then I will not come back on your show.
But where conference that?
Godfrey.
Conference starts with Moya, and it ends with Pointsville. It ends with Pointsville Breach. And Ahoma is Tivoli.
Okay. Folks,
Godfrey,
tonight.
not to steal any flowers away, but I think it's only fitting that we mention about PBC as well. Today they celebrated 75 years as an institution.
Oh, okay.
McDonald College and PBC's anniversary is the same. One is just a bit older than the other, and we all know that they've produced many stalwarts today. One of them was our guest last week.
Fantastic!
So
yes.
I just want to throw some flowers there for the PBC and McDonald College. Much love.
Right. So, folks, tonight we have Father Gerard Paul with us. Of course, we all know him. He's a priest, and he's also very, very he's the person now behind Speisal Imaging Center, an institution that has done extremely well for Grenada as it relates to our health sector. So, quite a lot. Father Paul, we started discussing the issue of Obia 2 weeks ago. Our first program, as Reese said, we basically just chatted around from what we heard as children growing up. And last week we had Dr. Bob putting a very philosophical and historical perspective on it. And tonight we have you as a religious leader to talk to us and to share with us probably some experience, what you may have heard, what you may have experienced. A lot of times we have heard people who have been in situations, as scholar would say, where doctor can't find a complaint, they would go to the priest. And definitely the prayers and whatever is done, a lot of times people do get help. So we bring you in right away to face the first ball. And tonight we have you as a... Something went wrong there, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, boy, the Obia start. The Obia, I want to ring a bell, you know. Father Paul, as a religious leader, Obia, put into perspective for us. As a religious leader, what is Obia?
Okay, so good night to everyone, your guests, my friends. It's always a pleasure to join you in your very interesting, informative program. So I would want to answer your question not by a sentence. My intention this evening is to give some theological perspective to the subject. So you will stop me when you want. But the point I want to make in opening is that in this part of the world, in the West Indies, we call the phenomena Obia, but it's it has a very long history. I was not privileged to hear your programs before and what was said. I heard that last week you got a philosophical, historical perspective. What I would like to do is to bring some biblical perspective to it. And I said theological, and that big word simply means to do with God. The Greek word for God is theos. So that when we say theology, the study of theology is the study of matters to do with the supernatural being we call God. Biology, the study of the body. So we have all these ologies, but they're not as complicated as they sound. Theology has to do with the study of matters to do with God. So if you allow me, what I will quickly do is to quickly peruse the scriptures and show you Obia in the scriptures. So one of the words, and you'll find many places from through the Old and New Testament, you hear is sorcery. You hear sorcery and you hear about sorcerers. And what's the description of a sorcery? The use of magic. And they say black magic. I don't use those words, but I'm just using it because it's common and it's going to give you a sense of what is being spoken about. I don't like when certain words are used, like just the other day into a program and they call a woman a black widow and things like that. I do not subscribe to that. We know the racial overtones that are involved, not just overtones, but derivatives. So involving magic, and it's not magic in the sense of when a fella goes in a hall, let's say in a show, and he does things with his hands and he does things with other objects and he mesmerizes you. But magic in the sense of the use of evil forces. Another term that you hear a lot in the Bible is divination. Divination. Divination is a practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means. Now, most time we use the term supernatural, we use it in a positive sense. We use it to depict God. We talk about God as supernatural. But supernatural is beyond natural. So not all supernatural refers to God. So that's why divination is referred to here as the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or the unknown by supernatural means. In this case, the supernatural means, again, is what we will call evil means, beyond nature. Since the sense of supernatural is contrary to God. I mean, we have that experience here in Grenada. Often people say, boy, I don't know what's going on in my life, so I need to go and see how my light is burning. So they go by the so-called Obia man or woman, mother this or so and so, to find out what is really, look into my life and see what is happening now and see what is on the horizon in the future. A few other terms, you have necromancy, used a lot in scriptures, Old and New Testament. Necromancy speaks to the practice of speaking to the dead, invoking the dead. You know, there are some things you never forget. We were shelling peas in our kitchen when I was a boy years ago in the nighttime, and my mother started talking about invoking the dead. Boy, I'm frightened like hell, but I don't want her to stop talking. So I'm pretending everything is all right. The kitchen is here, the toilet is there. After that, man can't go in the toilet. You're so afraid of that. The thoughts of someone speaking to the dead. So that is what is called necromancy. And well, you know the dead thing. You have necrophilia and necrophiliacs. Necrophiliac is someone who engages the dead sexually. Then you hear a lot about witches and wizards. Again, these are people that engage evil powers, have magic powers, but again, malignant, bad, supernatural powers. In the scriptures as well, you hear a lot about mediums. Mediums, and a medium is really an agent who has the wherewithal, who does have the means and the technique of how to get in touch with those evil forces. So if scholar wants to knows something about what's going on in his business, he engages a medium, and the medium is the kind of go-between person who is going to be able to engage the evil force, and then the evil force will supposedly reveal what he wants to reveal. I want to say quickly why theologically that is seen as wrong and as evil, and over throughout Scripture. In Deuteronomy 18, for example, they are told when you go into the land, you remember the Jews came from Egypt, went through the desert for 40 years and enter the promised land. Moses, in his last speech to them, he says, when you go into the promised land, do not engage in this kind of invocation of these spirits and so on. And the question is why? Why? I mean, when somebody is desperate and needs help, they go wherever they get that help. And we see that as even among Christians and very people who consider themselves as being very religious and very devout and very faithful people. I mean, if you can't sleep night after night after night, the priest can't help you, the pastor can't help you. Often people get to the stage, whoever is said to be able to give you help, you go there to get the help. And the reason why, I'll give you a couple of reasons why the scriptures, the Christian scriptures and the Jewish scriptures are adamant. They're very strong about going and consulting these evil spirits. Because first of all, God alone knows the future. And we should not even be seeking to know the future. That's the thinking. We should not be seeking to know the future. God alone knows the future. And as part of that, our relationship with God is a relationship of faith. Now, if I know what tomorrow brings, I don't need to have faith. If I know I'm going to die tomorrow, if I know everything about the future, if I know that I'm going to remain a poor man for the rest of my life, if I know this, if I know that, if I know the other, there is no need to have faith. Our relationship with God is one of a faith relationship. And faith is really referred to as walking in the dark. You don't know. You trust in blind. It's often referred to as naked faith. There is no clothing. Often people talk about the faith, and they talk about the faith with a lot of energy. They tell you about they go to church, and they tell you, they quote a lot of scriptures, they give you a lot of doctrines, and they tell you what is orthodoxy, what is the truth about this and that, and a lot of argument about which religion is speaking the truth, and which one is true and which one is false, and all of that. Really, that does not have very much to do with faith as we often think. Faith is taking a walk in the dark with the supreme being that you call God.
So Father Paul, let me just stop here for a moment. And I want to just go back to a couple of things you mentioned earlier, and you made reference to the Bible and words like sorcery and other things like that, necromancy and all of that. And just a while ago you mentioned people who need help, and when they become desperate, they would go wherever they think they can get help. My question to you is, all right, so as it relates to what we're discussing, be it called sorcery or whatever, if scholar goes wherever and says, well, I don't know how he's going to do it, but you go wherever you have to go, or to whoever you have to go to, and you said, listen, I am in serious problems. My house is up for sale. I have absolutely nothing. I can't afford that. I need your help. How is it that, let's say, another human being some who probably doesn't even have a bank account, or they don't have $1,000 on the bank account, can do whatever and cause Scholar to get probably the $300,000 he needs to ensure that his house does not sell. How can that happen?
How can it happen? And I would like to say, and I should have prefaced my deliberations by saying, first of all, I'm not an expert in this matter. But what I can say is that evil and good are two sides of the same coin. And that is why evil flourishes, or these practices that we call phobia and so on, witchcraft and so on, they flourish very, very well in an ethos where people are very religious. So how can he get help? I can tell you in a very generic way, in a very general way. Evil is efficacious. Evil has a life of its own. Evil has the propensity, the possibility of delivering. But the question for us believers is what that kind of delivery will mean. You see? It's like the scripture text, Matthew, somewhere in Matthew, Jesus says, the foolish man builds his house on sand, and the rain comes and knocks it down. And the wise man builds his house on rock. So, yes, Scholar, sorry, but it's on you tonight. Scholar might get help. Maybe Scholar might claim and maybe truthfully be alleviated of his desperate financial situation. Okay, so let's put it in the real world. But Obia is the real world too as well. I am desperate financially, and I go in Livingston home and all Livingston's life's saving under a mattress. I take it. Yes, I get help. But is that the right way to get help? And what are the possible consequences of getting help in that way?
Father Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier on, and you talk about like Venetian and necromancy, etc. And about medium. But I was also wondering if in my knowledge, I thought when you get divination, it was generally on the positive side. I never see that as an evil. I thought when you had somebody going in between, example, somebody might get sick, you might be affected or be afflicted by some kind of evil forces, and you go to somebody, like I go to the priest. I thought in that instant, you become somebody as the medium, because you are expected to act on my behalf. Because there are some persons, I believe, that are gifted in such a way that they are able to command positive forces. I'm not talking evil forces now. And then they can work on my behalf. So I think some of those terms and you use, I'm not so sure if you are saying that all of them are evil, or if they can be used both for evil and for good. Right.
I think you're raising a very important point. I was defining those terms based on the biblical ethos.
Okay.
So I am in full agreement with you. You remember in the New Testament, I think it was in the Acts of the Apostles, Peter and Paul, a couple of the disciples, went out to cast out demons, and they met a fellow casting out demons as well. And they tried to stop him. And Jesus said, don't stop him, because he too could be gifted. In fact, he was gifted. One of the problems with religion is that, every religion, including mine, try to define a space and try to define a whole set of rituals and rights and wrongs and so on. And if you do not come within the ambit of the parameters that they give you, then you are wrong, or then you're evil. Whatever you're doing is evil. And very often we call those evil because we don't understand them. So for example, as a practical example, I'll take the spiritual Baptist. You see? So the Christians did not know what the spiritual Baptists were doing and continue to do. They don't understand them. The spiritual Baptist is referred to as a syncretic religion. They take from this and they take from that. Again, in my considered view, this is a derogatory term, because all religions, including the Catholic Church, took from all kinds of places to become what they become now. Okay? And let me use this opportunity to make a clarification, and people don't have to agree with me, but that's a fact. When we talk about voodoo and voodooism, we all think it's about evil, and it's not. Voodoo is a religion that has good and has bad. Catholicism is a religion that has a lot of good and a damn lot of bad. And so with all other religions. So we have to recognize ideology in all of that. Some dominant forces want to tell us where to look, what is it, and what is not it. But if you have a proper perspective on a reasonable perspective, or if you delve into the history. So in short, I am in total agreement with you. There are people who are just gifted and have gifts to in fact see. But the danger in that, and I think that's the point I want to raise more than anything else. I'm not defending no Catholic Church or no particular religion here. I'm speaking from my perspective. The danger in that, we can be easily fooled and be led astray. Livingston, you know the story of the man who's seeing for everybody, and people coming by him in the hundreds and thousands to see. But when he lost his ram goat, he go to the police. You understand what I'm saying? We can be really misled by these people who claim to have this and claiming to have that. Right. But in fact, there are ways of also discerning the truthfulness. Jesus says, by their fruits you shall know them. So if people are in fact being healed, then how could you say it's evil? I mean, genuinely healed. Right. We have that case in the Bible where Jesus is accused of casting out devils by the evil one, and Jesus says that is impossible. You can't cast out devils that way, you know. So the fruits are known. I know, for example, a gentleman who died many years ago from La Poterie called Mr. Sugar. Mr. Sugar was a spiritual Baptist. And that man, I know that as a fact. My family knows that as a fact. This was a man that healed countless numbers of people. And in an era when there was no phones, he will tell, because my parents and he were close, that somebody's coming from St. Vincent to him, and somebody's coming from Trinidad, and you see that man go looking for days to get bush and mixing up bush and healing people. So there are people who have that. But sometimes I think what largely happens is that organized religion and the dominant denominations and so on say this is the sphere of operation. And if you do not operate within this sphere, whatever you do is evil. Okay, I'm really glad you made that point, because I was never trying to say, I was just describing from the biblical perspective, and I really wanted to send home very strongly the Christian perspective, the biblical perspective on why you do not go to these powers, because they are invoking evil.
Okay, so I'm
not talking about those who have natural good gifts. There are powers. There are some of like the necromancy and all of this. They are invoking evil forces.
Right. So, Father Paul, we're gonna take a
break.
Yes. So we're gonna take the break right now. When we come back, we have some questions on Facebook, and then I'm sure Scholar Reese they want to come in as well. So stay with us, folks. We'll be back with you in just a moment.
You can now send a gift card to loved ones locally or internationally thanks to the food fair. Here's how it works. Click the gift card icon or banner, customize your gift card by choosing from different templates, dollar amount, and personalized messages. You can also upload your personal design. Select add to cart and complete transaction. Allow relatives and friends to pick up an item or items at the food fair for the dollar value. Gift card. It's that easy.
Prescription filled, or you require non-prescribed medication, supplements, or all your personal needs, visit Gittins Healthcare at locations on Wall Street, Grand Anse, Victoria Street, and Central Deputy Street, Wharf. Gittins Healthcare Inc. provide an exceptional personalized pharmacy experience. Additionally, children under 5 and adults 55 years and over will enjoy 10% discount on purchases of $20 and over on prescription medication. Stop settling for less. Visit Gittins Healthcare, where your health is our priority.
Gifts of love with dread, bringing love for you this game. Communion show with that weekend, with gifts of love with dread.
We're bringing you gifts of love with care at the communal. This Christmas, we are your Santa. It's all about sharing the warmth of this season with those you love. Getting on this special loan, taking advantage of great interest rates with no principal payments until January 2022. Share the gift of love. Make it a merrier Christmas with the communal. Exciting prizes for members throughout the promotion. For we are your Santa this Christmas. Offer ends January 31st, 2022. Lending terms and conditions apply.
Raise it high up the ladder. Let we set it on fire.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Oui Culture. Father Gerald Paul, our guest this evening, as we continue our discussion on Oba. Before we go back to Father Paul and Scholar, Reese, I know we have a lot of Facebook comments. Let's go to the Facebook page and let's hear from some of our viewers.
Okay, sure. Let me get to that. We have, I'm just going to go straight to the questions. We have Zayakia John is saying, good night, ask Paul. And someone walk over on him in the church that was a Sunday Mass? So that's a question.
What's the question?
Statement, in the form of a statement for Father Paul.
You can repeat it, please?
She wants to know, she wants you to confirm that someone tried to walk over on you in church during a Sunday Mass.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to continue. Karen is saying priest and pastor can't help if you don't have faith. Okay, we have Kellon Bob is saying, to me, faith is subjective. Everyone has different faith principles based on their different epistemologies. But if Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, or Orisha, or be it Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, or Orisha, the problem with Christianity is that it is premised on the idea of supremacy. That is, Christianity as the only superior faith. Let's see, we have, again, he's saying they don't know or understand because your church, Father Paul, demonized spiritual Baptists for centuries. We also have, Karen is asking what good is having voodoo. Kellon again is saying, I'm glad he said voodoo is a religion. Thank you for making the point. I respect you for saying that. We have again, he said, well, I'm agreeing with Father Paul a lot tonight. Thanks for debunking these myths against African religions. Let's see. Some people are disagreeing with what Father Paul has to say. Karen is saying that's your perspective. Champagne Rose is saying do not complicate the things. Ronnie Slinger said it probably was the police and the judge back then. Let's see. Champagne Rose saying people who practice these acts are under serious manipulation and need aggressive prayer to free them. Cameron George is saying what are the book King James wrote before the King James Version? Google that. The Bible is the real Obia against our people. And Karen is asking to ask Father Paul, who was Norman Paul? That's what I'm seeing on the Facebook page on the We Culture platform. We have Phenomenal Val is saying, that's so true, Father Paul. If we know what tomorrow brings, faith will be no more. I never thought of it in that light. Food for thought. So is there such a thing as good Obia, or is Obia pure evil? And that's a question that I have for Father Paul as well. But before we go there, we have Alistair Thomas on the We Culture page is saying, they used to say biowar do you. The priest choke us on you. The priest shake a gong on you. I think I'm supposed to read that differently. Yeah. But anyways, those are the things that they used to say, and that is coming from Alistair. So that's it for the Facebook comment.
All right. Right. So we don't have any comments on the WhatsApp platform as yet. So let's bring in Scholar. You've been quiet all night, so let's get you in here and your thoughts on some of the things that were said just far.
All right. Well, Godfrey, I made a food sensitive program start. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'll tell you I'm minding my business and I'm make a wine drinking, I don't know why you're bringing
Well, your business is what going on here,
Lord here, like graciously here. Don't do me that, But I've listened to Father Paul, and all I can say is lyrics. To use a calypso term, lyrics. And the strange thing is that we found a lot of similarities between what Father Paul is saying, although Kellan is taking some exception with some things. But Father Paul and Kellan said a lot of things that are similar. And if you dissect it, and you'll notice. Although Father Paul goes into the whole theological standpoint and so on, but he has debunked all this thing of black people and things coming from black and so on being bad and what have you. I think also what Father Paul has done tonight, which is a departure kind of from what Kellan was given in his perspective, and it is more in keeping with what I was asking last week. Because you see, Father Paul went into all of these things, sorcery and so on. And I believe that this is how Obia became, in a local sense, this is how it is viewed, right? We take everything, whether it's the witchcraft, the all the other things, that sorcery, whatever, and we dump them into one thing. That's opium, right? And we do not view opium as having any good. Neither do we view voodoo as having any good. Neither do we view those things as religion and religious practices. You see? And I think this is where we err. But we err in terms of the world perspective. But we are not erring in terms of our cultural perspective. This is our culture season, and we can go way back into theology and into what and what. You don't change the fact that this is how we see it culturally. So culturally, when people speak of obia, as Father Paul said, you go either to see how your life burning, to see how the future will look, or you go if something happened to you and the doctor can find you complain, then you go to thing. Or if somebody obia you, then you go for our next obia to unobia you, because obia on obia in obia. Huh? So this is the whole thing. But it's a good discussion and a good we're seeing the similarities and we're also seeing the differences in what they're saying. And I mean, I can't wait for the discussion to continue. And of course, although Father Paul says that he's not an expert on this whole issue, but we are in Oui Culture. Father Paul is a priest. And Father Paul has to know about this thing. So put your head on us. You have to know about this thing. Because priests and so on encounter these things in their daily
we come into that, you know. We come into that. We come into that because
into theology and so nice. You're bringing us. You're setting the stage.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Let's bring in a receipt before we go to Doc. We see your perspective so far.
Yes, because earlier when Father Paul was speaking, and he was talking about obia and that sort of, and the different forms of necromancy and all that, I was kind of getting that he was saying that it was evil. And I remember in our last program, when we discussed obia, we sort of came up with there's good obia for good reasons, and there's obia for bad reasons. People choose to use obia for, good or bad practices. But then listening further, he debunked a lot of things. So I'm just going to go straight into one of the questions from our viewers. And he said, ask Gerald Paul, what are his thoughts on the role that the Catholic Church played in the demonizing of African spiritual practices that they have defined as obia during the period of colonialism and slavery, that have contributed to prejudice against people who believe differently, such as the Orishas and the Shangos and the Voodoo practitioners? So that's one question, and we have about two more.
Okay, so
ask three questions. True? That's not three questions.
I don't think so. It's one question.
What we see? Okay, so Father Paul, before Father Paul take those questions, let's hear what Doc has to say, and then we can go to the questions and answer them and discuss.
Godfrey, for some reason I feel tonight I want to give a lot of weight Father Paul. I find he's on the ball. I'm agreeing with a lot of what he's saying. So,
okay.
I think the questions that are asked of him could lead to other discussion. I would give way, and because I really want to hear Father Paul. I think people want to hear Father Paul more tonight.
Right.
Before you answer, before you answer, let me just ask you, please, when you are drawing your analogies and so on, could you please use living something? You use mine again. Usually,
I'm going to use the duck. I'm going to use the duck.
That's right. Bald-head one, two of them. It's bald-head one.
Yeah, so, sorry, let me get your name, please. Risa? Reese.
You could just say,
I think...
For the point, you could just say the fella. And that's cool. Everybody would know what you're talking about. Just say the fella. So you're a doc, you're a scholar, and you're the fella.
Okay. If she accepts it.
Yeah, well, definitely. That's your name.
I accept it because they accept ladies.
I want to ask Reese to repeat the question, not because I forgot it, but because I think it's such an important question that you need to repeat it for our audience to follow.
Right. So the question is, what are your thoughts on the role that the Catholic Church played in demonizing African spiritual practices that they have defined as obia during the period of colonialism and slavery that have contributed to prejudice against people who believe differently, such as the Orishas and the Shangos and the Voodoo practitioners? So what do you think is the role that the Catholic Church played in demonizing these spiritual practices? Because you did say that voodoo is a religious practice.
Yeah.
You know, and you had enlightened us on how is it that every religion see themselves as the one religion, and they would have, taken things from different parts of the world, different practices, different cultures, and they've come up with their religion and they feel that theirs is the one. And every religion is guilty of that. So, but specifically, what role do you think the Catholic Church played in that aspect?
Well, I think that the Catholic Church played a very terrible role. The Catholic Church played a huge role. I have my own perspective on and I'm not afraid to say that. In my own personal view, I once did a paper for a theological conference that we were having a conference yearly in the Caribbean, and I researched the practice of mourning in the spiritual Baptist faith. And I know I'm going to be misunderstood by many people, but I want to be very clear about what I'm saying. I'm a Catholic. I've grown through the Catholic Church, and that's what I am. In my considered view, and I know this is a very controversial statement, the spiritual Baptists, in the best of their practices, they are very and much more closer to our people's culture and identify more with our people's experience. Let me tell you something. In the Bible, there is no division between culture and religion. This idea of compartmentalizing our world, religion, education, health, this, that, it was one. That was the world of the time. So the priest was the priest for your health, physical health. The priest was the priest for us to tell you when the rain is going to come in Egypt, for example, and so on and so forth. But the prime point I'm making is that in biblical times, there was no division. Israel understood that without their culture, they can't have a genuine religion. And without their culture, they can't really come to know God. Because God comes to us in the world of our experiences. God comes to us in our daily lives. He comes to us, God speaks to us in our own language and not the language of somebody else. So the colonial movement, remember, first of all, they told us that we were no persons at all. When they came to this part of the world, this is facts. These are facts, and often we don't want to speak about them. We don't want to hear about them. We believe we belong to this great Christian church, which has done nothing wrong, which history shows us that is not true. When Christianity came to this part of the world, we decimated, we destroyed, we killed people, the Indians, the Amerindians, in their millions. And what was our justification? While the colonials were killing these people, and our church have to accept our sins. And that's one of the big problems we have. We don't accept our sins. We were there blessing these people with their guns to shoot and kill the Amerindians. Right? And they killed them in their millions. You understand? And here, while they were doing that, in the universities, the halls of knowledge and education, they were actually asking the question, is an Indian a human being? Does he have a soul? Listen, Livingston, if I want to enslave you, if I find myself in a position, they tell me to use scholar again. If I want to enslave you, I have to find every reason why it is justified to subjugate Livingston. And the church was part and parcel of that program. And we can't pretend anything otherwise. Listen, while the educated Europeans, while they didn't even know what a brain looked like, they did not even know what a brain looked like. The Aztec and Inca civilization were already doing brain operations. The scalpels that they use are at the museums today, but we are not educated about these things. Instead, what do they show us in Hollywood? How the white man chasing down Indians on a horse and shooting them down, and we black people clapping that. That's what the propaganda did and continues to do. So, in answer to your question, we can take this thing on and on and on and on and on very far. But in answer to your question, we played a nasty role, and we must claim it. And I want to go back to this point I was making. Israel, when they were invaded by the Greeks, because the first empire, world empire that came on the scene was the Assyrians. And the Assyrians were brute force. Then you had the Persians. By the time of the Babylonians, they realized you don't have to use brute force all the time. You might use brute force to kill a lot of people, frighten them, but eventually, what do? The Babylonians took people and sent them into exile. Not only Israel that was sent into exile. They took people and sent them. So they find the leaders in Grenada, the people who can organize and resist them, and send them to St. Vincent, send them to South America. That was the Babylonian policy. By the time you came to the Greeks, it was acculturation. Make everybody speak Greek. Make everybody have Greek mannerisms, learn Greek philosophy, and by that way you steal their minds and their heads. In other words, you take their culture from them. You know that great guy, what's his name? I think it's Livingstone who did a lot of conquering in Africa. He says these people are so smart and educated. The only how we're going to win them is to indoctrinate them and take their culture from them. Their culture is to develop. And that's the same thing that was done to the Indians. And that's remember, Europe, all Europe know is war, you know. There was the 500-year war in Europe. In Europe, there is a period called the Dark Ages, when they said nothing good happened in the Dark Ages. It was just wars upon wars upon wars upon wars. Whereas, yes, the people on this part of the world had wars, but nothing to talk about.
But Father Paul, I want to just jump in here a second. I just want to jump in here a second.
Yeah.
But the whole issue of killing people, you spoke about a lot of the people who were killed, and we know about the story. The Protestants, the Muslims, and all of that, they were killed in the name of Christianity because Christianity was supposed to be superior. But wasn't that passed down from since the days of the children of Israel moving to the desert and going into the land of Canaan, the promised land, and destroying people? Even
yes,
and we're talking about a time when men actually had direct contact with the Creator.
Yes and no. Because you see, I remember doing from my second year theology, a paper on the conquest of the promised land. And it really was not conquest. Biblical scholars like people like, I think, Gerard Von Rad will tell you it was a settlement. In those days, people were not as strict as it became later on. It was, people were quite nomadic. The Israelites were nomadic. And it was all right for people to settle down by people. And they will have, little nations. They weren't even nations. Nomadic groups settling down one by the next. And there will be skirmishes from time to time. But not all out war and decimation of one another. Israel eventually, though, followed the region, Asia Minor and so on, where people had kingdoms. And Israel wanted to be a kingdom. And then Israel subjugated the peoples around and became a kingdom under David itself, But it's a very important issue that Kellon raised there, that every religion claims supremacy, and most religions, especially those who have existed for a very long time, have used all sorts of force to destroy one another in the process. And now we are not using guns, but we still destroying the culture and the people by, I am not talking to you because I'm in a different, I've seen it 1,000 times. Come from my church, and I'm trying to say hello to somebody who come from another church, and they head straight. They wouldn't say hello to me, and families against families. So it has not yet ended.
So Father Paul, I want to backtrack a bit, and I want to take you back into the scriptures. You brought it in, and I want us to look quickly at in the book of Acts, chapter 8 and verse 9, and it says, there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that himself was some great one. What was it that Simon was doing? So it speaks of sorcery and bewitching them. Was he, in our local terms, walking obia on them people?
That's what the scripture is saying. And you see, that's one of the other reasons why I say the scripture sees those as bad. They're bad for many reasons. One, people do put spells on one another through those. I mean, it happened, you hear about spells in the scripture as well, and destroy people's lives. The evil force is very, very amazing, and we if we have some time, we can talk a little bit about it. But evil is evil, and that's why I spoke about evil, about obia, from that perspective. Mm-hmm. But I didn't speak of it as a religion. So that's precisely what Simon was doing. And one of the things you find there is that the person set up themselves as a god. That's idolatry. That's what scriptures, Old and New Testament, regard as idolatry. I make myself the supreme being, the being to come to, contrary to the Judeo-Christian faith that says there is only one God. Of course, human beings can help us, but we do not go to the place where we now put our ultimate trust in somebody who claims to almost
So can someone, and I'm speaking strictly in our culture now, the black people, the black race, within our culture, can someone use Obia to cause another person to be possessed by an evil spirit? And yes, it can happen. And if it can happen, how does someone get that evil spirit out of that individual?
Well, in the Christian church, it's called exorcism. It's a process of prayers and rituals that move that evil spirit.
So can that be considered a higher, and I'm putting it in Scott's word, could that be considered a higher level of Obia?
No. You see, okay, so I want to clarify. Now, I understand from what you said earlier on, Doc made that point, that you all spoke of Obia as religion. In other words, the good and the bad. Whenever I use the term Obia, I'm coming from the perspective of the bad aspects. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, for example, the process of exorcism does not call upon evil spirits. It calls upon the God of the Lord Jesus Christ to remove those spirits. And that is what is the key difference. Whenever I use the term Obia, I'm using it to refer to evil spirits and engagements that bring evil into the lives of people, that afflict people's lives, as the sorcerer you were referring to earlier on. Because in Samaria, I don't remember the term that was used, but he literally wreaked havoc on the people, because he had the ability to bring these evil spirits into the human domain. And you see, by the way, we talk about bringing them. These things are not far from us, you know. We exist with them right here. It's like Jesus says to us, you are the temple of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit dwells in you. I cannot say, again, I'm not an expert on this thing, you see, but, you know, they tell you, the people in the world, physicists and so on, will tell you that when we look into a room, when you and I look in front of us, we think that we can see all that there is to be seen. That is far from the truth. Based on how we are made up as human beings, what our eyes are able to see, we are able to see through what is called visible light. Visible light. And visible light only captures not one something of what is there in any room, in any space that you look in at any time. So we are very limited in our vision. That's why when the evil forces come, people talk about the hair raise and the hair stand and because what they do is to affect the electromagnetic field. the electricity in the atmosphere. The atmosphere always have electricity. And one of the ways in which they manifest themselves is by increasing that electricity. And that's why people here in the room will stand on edge and so on and so forth. But back to the point I'm making, the person who evokes those forces, they're not getting them a million miles away from here. They're getting them right here because we all live in the same space and time. But we do not have the capability of visible light, which is what we see. Through what we see, we are able to see this is a bottle, this is a table, this is a chair. Visible light is only not one, I think, some percent of what is actually there to be seen.
So, Scholar, any other questions you have for Father Paul before I go again? Or
any break if you have to take any?
I jotted some of the questions down that were asked.
We need a second break.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask Father Paul something.
Let's take a question. We go to the break after.
All right. So here's one, because Father Paul has just said that what he sees when he speaks of Obia, he speaks of the bad, yeah? But in our culture, we tend to accept that Obia can also do good by foiling the bad. Right? So for example, Tangla sang, and I mentioned that last week. Tangla sang in his Obia, in his Kalalu thing. He said he got a vision and he go check with the Obia man, and the Obia man tell him, Tangla, you're very lucky. You come and you visit me all year. Otherwise, you might eat all your money, like how we see it in that money.
She waited too.
That standpoint, you can take that the Obia man filed something that was bad. We also would use the term Obia also if, for example, somebody thief your thing. So Obia sometimes is seen as kind of dispensing justice, right? So you don't know who thief your thing. It's a mystery, and then you could go to the Obia, and the only way that you will know is a funny kind of justice, is a kind of I think. The only way that you could know who thief you think is when the person who thief you think start to do some kind of thing, right? It affects them. Then you'll know. So it's kind of like dispensing justice eye for an eye, which quote unquote might be seen as something good, really. So I don't believe that, or when people afflicted with things and they don't know what they complain, then they go by the Obia man to see if they could get healed, right? This, in that case, is Obia seen as doing something good. Although it is from the same standpoint, as you said, the same coin, two faces at the same time, but it's seen as doing something good culturally. So the question is, would you agree with my assessment?
Yeah, I think there is truth there, because if you speak of Obia, and remember now, we're talking about, and that's why we're struggling to grapple, because minds like mine are Western trained. We're also talking about the simultaneous coexistence of evil and good. And what I'm hearing from you, in the Obia man, there is the coexistence of evil and good. And that's something to think a lot about in in the Western mind, in which we are mostly all trained to think, we tend to see evil here and good there. And that's what I'm saying is very interesting. I'm thinking hard as I'm speaking.
But Father Paul, Father Paul, is it a very similar thing? Because now you as a priest went to your own training, and oftentimes John Public would say that the priest throw curse on you, the priest can throw curse on you, or the priest would spy you. So the priest who is set up to be the ultimate arbiter, this person that is a medium, right? That is expected to dispense only good things, has the ability or the potential to also put evil spell on somebody. So I don't see the difference.
I'm glad you're raising that, because that's not the teaching, and I'm not telling you some priest hand and dirty. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I would never doubt that. We find throughout scriptures that you have high religious people and high clergy in Old and New Testament engaging in these kind of evil deeds. This tradition or this thinking that the priest can put curse on you comes out of the Afrocentric thinking.
Okay.
It comes out of the Afrocentric. I remember my mother saying, Livingston, you remember when there was that big issue in Tivoli where
the Trinity pastor?
Right, and the priest ran behind a fellow with his car and all this thing. And
yes. Yeah.
My mother said, they don't know who they're playing with. If the priest put on his black gum and he go and he ring them bell and them there, that man turn in ashes, you know.
Right.
As a child, I actually believe that. But really, we don't have them kind of power. Our thinking, in other words, even when the Christian thinking is that when you go to the priest to help you in a situation, very often what the priest does is to pray for you, pray with you, counsel you, and so on, and put your case, if in other words, before God. He does not have the power to do anything. I don't have the power to do anything. I mean, people often come to me and tell me so-and-so do this to them and so-and-so do them to that. And I want you to offer a mass for that and for that and for the other. And I'm always at pains to tell them, mass is prayers. God says, judge not and you will not be judged. Let the judgment be upon him. Let he decide what he's going to do.
Father Paul, there is this really strongly held view that the priest is trained in such to help. For matter of fact, some people even believe in invocation, that the priest has potential to even do that. But when people who have their problem, they're afflicted, they expect the priest to intercede on their behalf. So a lot of times people go, the same thing. You have a house, people dying, they call the priest to give the final prayer. This is widely held view, particularly, I know in the Catholic Church. The priest can intercede on your behalf. When, I know recently I have a cousin of mine, she was dying and she called the priest, he wanted their final prayer. Some people getting married and they expect the blessing from the priest. They build a house or they want to acquire some property, and they having a mass, because they actually believe by doing that they are going to be getting some spiritual reward.
Yeah, but you see, Christianity, Catholicism, believe in the power of prayer. St. James chapter 5, verse 15 and following says, if you are called the elder, and the elder will pray for you, and you will be healed. So the priest, a lot of the power that you think the priest have is what you hand to him, is what you believe he has. He by himself does not have that power. And I'm not telling you, I agree with you, that we Christians and believers can intercede for one another. People tell people to pray for them all the time. And some people believe in some people, not necessarily priests, whose prayers are very valid because they see that person as being very close to God. And this is a biblical thing in that in the Old and New Testament, the priest was seen as the one who takes the offering of the people to God. But in the interpretation, in the teachings that I know, it's not that you have the power. You are able to go before God, and in the case of the Holy Mass, for example, we believe it's the highest prayer. We know, but that's our faith. It's the highest prayer that can be offered. So you offer that prayer on behalf, but you can't determine. I mean, I remember early in my days in one of the parishes I went to work. This guy, close to Christmas, he fattening his ram to sell, and he was depending on that. You know, poor people depending on making a few dollars for them to have a good Christmas. And somebody stole it. He came to me really believing that I can help him. And people tell you that. I know you could help me if you want to. What I know of that. You understand? We do not have power, and we don't know these things. A lot of people believe we are taught that. We don't know. Some people say to us, younger priests, and all you son of priests, man, them old fellas and them, what they used to do and what they used to do. I don't think it was ever true. Often the power that people are said to have are the powers that you give to them.
All right, so let's take our final break, and then when we come back, we'll open the telephone lines and take some questions. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.
A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco.
You can now send a gift card to your loved ones locally or internationally thanks to the food fair. Here's how it works. Click the gift card icon or banner, customize your gift card by choosing from different templates, dollar amount, and personalized messages. You can also upload your personal design. Select add to cart and complete transaction. Allow relatives and friends to pick up an item or items at the food fair for the dollar value. Gift card. It's that easy.
Here is a little known fact. There is only one place in Grenada that you can get an MRI scan done. That place is Spicile Imaging Center. Yes, Grenada, that's the truth. Other centers could offer you other scans, but Spicile Imaging provides an authentic MRI scan. Here's another little known fact. Spicile Imaging has 3 centers. We operate at Grenville, the Carnage, and at the Ocean House, Grandlands. We provide the widest range of laboratory tests and services. CT scans, x-rays, mammograms, ultrasounds, and a host of other services. We are fully staffed by a team of family doctors and specialists. Call us today at 444-7679. or 406-1500, or visit any of our 3 locations. Spicile Imaging, from seeing the doctor to getting lab tests, scans, and pharmacy services. We are here to take care of you.
We often take mobility for granted. That is why at the Grenada Physiotherapy Limited, we look after our patients' holistic well-being. We assess and treat from the simplest to the most complex complaints. Treating injury is not our only focus. We have a passionate team and a wide array of practitioners working together to assist you through that rehabilitation process. We offer a wide range of services: speech, massage and physiotherapy, weight management, cardiac rehabilitation, and much more. Call and make an appointment today, 435-8000, or visit us downstairs the National Cricket Stadium, gate 101-115.
If there was ever a time to keep and stay healthy, it's now! We at Hills and Valley are here to help you take deliberate steps to maintain your health. We stayed true to maintaining the most comprehensive rates while stocking the widest range of medicines and health devices, including personal protective equipment. There are so many benefits shopping with us. You get great safe through, discounts for senior citizens, the reward cards for loyal customers. Ask about owning yours today. Visit us at Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George, Julie Street opposite the Grenville Terminal, and at Hillsborough, Carriacou. Our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street also stocks the widest range of pharmaceuticals. We are with you on the hills and the valleys. We are Hills and Valley Pharmacy.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious conditioned chapel with live streaming, a modern environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Raise it high up the ladder. Let we set it on fire. On higher, give it a fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco.
Welcome back, folks. And our telephone line is open. We'll be engaging our callers. Reese, let's take a few more Facebook comments and then we'll engage some of our callers.
Godfrey?
Yeah, Reese, I think you're muted.
I'm unmuted now, but Livingston had a comment that he wanted to make. He said it was going to be brief.
Okay, all right, let's go.
This one was really outstanding, and maybe I should have done that at the beginning. It's just to recognize, this record, just a change of trend. That won't take long. A trend. This guy named Biffy. His name is Neil Matheson. He has been somebody in the Carriacou string band, playing music with Extract, with the Ghetto Boys, with Country Boys for a number of years. And just recently, just looking at them at one of the repeat shows, there's something very unique about the way they contain the culture. I mean, when you listen to Neil Matheson, that is his actual name, he always remains steady, steadfast to the music, to the culture of Grenada and Carriacou, strictly. So just want to send some flowers to Neil Matheson for his contribution that they have been making to the culture of Grenada. That's basically.
Okay. So we see. Let's take a few comments on Facebook and then we go to the telephone.
We have Karen Charles, who's very adamant about Obia being bad. She's saying Obia can never be good. No way. Anna is saying we have not relate on the Haitian people. Remember, voodoo is considered a religion in Haiti. Then we have Karen is saying ritual performed by a religious group for evil intent is Obia. Obia, witchcraft, black magic, and necromancy is all wickedness. G. Eds is saying Father Jerry has never been afraid to speak his mind. Ingrid, again, they are all wickedness. We all need to give God praise and turn to him. Kimron is saying, Father Paul, you're making sense. Sophia is agreeing with you. G. Eds is saying, I didn't expect anything less from Father Jerry. Netta is saying, we have to remember it was the Pope who divided the world between Portugal and Spain. The church was front and center with colonialism. One of the reasons they enslaved us was because they claimed we were unsaved. Tessa Barry saying, Father Paul, I have a lot of respect for you. Perrin, Father Paul, you're beating around the bush. Let me go watch my Keep Live. Oh Lord. Kimron is saying, what's called drinking the blood of Jesus and eating his flesh? He wants to know what that is. Melvin is saying the Catholic Church demonized African culture. When them do it, it is science. When African do it, is obia. If a black person have skeleton in their house, it is obia. But a white person, they want to be a doctor. Karen is saying, Kimron, I'm asking about drinking of animal blood, even bathing people with it. And there's a whole debate there because he wants to know what is the difference. Netfa is saying drum beating was how they communicated slave revolts. That is why the slave owners banned it. Kimon is saying people drink blood every day. Go to the supermarket, the barbecue man, you can find a dead animal all over. Let's not talk about the blood pudding too. Anyways, G. Eds is saying the book of Psalms is a whole book of spells. Cynthia has joined us. She's listening as usual. Karen is saying, yes, Godfrey, they can. You can pray for that person, rebuking the evil spirit from that person in the name of Jesus. Lord is saying, can someone differentiate what voodoo and Satanism is, as a religion is? Let's see. Ingrid is saying, pray to God, he's the biggest Obia man of all. Okay. Is Cynthia saying, Ingrid, I know of a lady who used to say God's Obia stronger than man's. Bernard is saying all of them on this program is brainwashed in the European religion. Therefore, they can't get any positive information on African practices. Let's see again. Anna wants to know what is good Obia. Doreen is saying the priest can't save you. Know God for yourself. Jose is saying good night. He's going through minus temperatures, but he has just joined. Tessa, look the advert with all this talk on Obia. Cameron, who created good and who created bad, is the creator of all this confusion. Tahira Wicks is saying God has given mankind dominion over all things on earth through his Holy Spirit. Father Paul, you can access power from God through prayer and fasting. Anna Mitchell is saying the Jew cuts animals' neck in their religious ceremony. When the Spanish and Haitian perform the same act, why are they deemed as being cruel to the animals if they are all doing this as religious customs? Question to the Father Paul, can politicians obia in elections? Because it is said that in Grenada, anyways, well, I think I can read that. It is said that in Grenada, it is a practice why a party wins 15 seats twice. And in Barbados, seen that Mia won 30 seats after talking to the 15-seat man. So 15 plus 15 gave her 30 seats. And that's what I'm seeing on the GBN platform on the Oui Culture. And Fernie Derek is saying, I always wondered if all priests are all trained to perform exorcism, the expulsion of evil spirits from people. Also, can someone do a priest? And he's also saying, and in our culture, we hear of stories of people who steal fowl cock, and the Obia person making the cock crow in those people's belly. One of the popular beliefs, again in our culture, involves going to the Obia man or woman to keep or bring back a lover who strays. And let me just check the YouTube. Val is saying, so is there such a thing as good Obia? Or, well, I think I read that one already. Or is Obia pure evil? So that's it for that. I think we really need to take some calls.
Yes, indeed. We definitely will. Let's go to our telephone. Oui Culture, good evening.
Godfrey, good night.
Yes, good night, caller.
I was focusing, I don't really believe in OBI, but I could speak on some things around Queen's Park. Right? I know about Ground 1 in Queen's Park. We had a stadium there. I know Ground 2 by Wesley College School. And I know where they have the people and them selling where they call the farmers place. They call it Ground 3. Right? And you had other place over there where they say you have Ground 4 and whatsoever. And you had a lot of cow and a lot of sheep and goat there. But I heard they say that you had a man, they call him Black Jono, cut out I am cow foot. Right? And everybody is afraid the pastor come there. You understand? So when we come in there now, we're running, coming across there in a shortcut to come up in Dabo, you understand? And the time we reach below Dabo Hill now, we had a mango tree they used to call child shit coming up the hill there. They say he used to always have a larger blessed day. So by the time we reach below the hill now, I don't know if it's people are making tricks. But people, I don't know if the influence of them, they're seeing things like people running up and down. So people used to run at the college, they call somebody else and they go down there, wait for somebody to come up to reach up there. You understand? So I was telling you about OB. I don't really believe in that, so I just focus on telling what I know in Dabo.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much indeed. 435-2041, that's the number you can call, and you can make your contribution. And let's try to make it really brief because we don't have a lot of time remaining. Oui Culture, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, caller.
Good evening to the priest.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Okay, the Catholic Church in the 18th century slaughtered millions of people, right? And you admit that. My question is, has this principles changed? It definitely has not changed. What really happened is the method of controlling things is different. So you and your religion has not changed anything. It's just the method of control and doing things is different. So please tell us, how has the Catholic your religion changed over the years? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Father, I think we'll leave this alone because we will be dealing with religion shortly. We're talking about Obia. I don't know about the killing and how the church changed. That is something that we'll touch on when we're dealing with religion. So let's move to another caller. Oui Culture, good evening. Hello.
Thanks for saving me.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to our panel.
Yes, good evening, caller. Let's make it brief, please. Yes.
Thank you for gracing us with your presence. I remember growing up, we used to, in the early morning, sometimes you go to bed and outside is calm and so on. When you get up in the early morning, you would find what you would say a greased cock at the junction. Could anyone please explain that to us? I would like.
Okay, thank you very much. I can tell you what a greasy cock is. You get a fowl and you pour oil on it, that is a greasy cock. That is a greasy cock, definitely. 435-2041, let's go back to the telephone. Oui Culture, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening, caller. Caller, you need to turn the volume of your radio or your TV down, please. Listen to us on the telephone. Okay?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening to Godfrey and the people. I would like to ask, what is exorcism? And can exorcism be in the Catholic Church considered? Is there anybody doing it now?
Okay, thank you. That one for Paul, you can take a go at. He wants to know what is exorcism.
Exorcism is the process whereby you get rid of the evil being that is causing problems. People can be possessed, but there are other forms. A building may be possessed. And you have different forms of evil that torture people and trouble people. People are not always possessed by the evil spirit. The problem we've had over many years is that the Catholic Church has a practice of appointing an exorcist, and that will be a priest. That is to do that as his permanent job, because exorcism does take a lot in terms of fasting and prayer, a lot of energy and so on. So exorcists are trained, often not by teaching like going to a university, but you're trained by like sort of on-the-job training. You used to learn to be a mechanic. You go in the mechanic shop and you learn. So you will be often trained with a senior exorcist, someone who has the experience. Because the thing is an experiential thing. The problem is that for many years, as long as I know myself as a priest, 28 years, we have not had an exorcist in the Catholic Church, and that is a major problem.
Okay. Let's go back to our telephone. Oui Culture, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to ask that question. Generally, I want to ask that question to Father Paul. One time in a parish in St. David's, a little boy was missing, and the parents didn't see him well. You know, as before you used to say you have dealers, right? So they presume that somebody work some trick on the little boy to sell him, as they normally say. And they went to the priest in St. David's, and the priest told them not to touch the child, right? And in 2 to 3 days' time, the person that held that child hostage, maybe to sell him whatever they used to say before, would bring that child and put that child in a place where they could see the child. Because they searched the whole place. They searched all where we were, and the child wasn't to be found. But when the priest tell them that maybe the person that had that child hostage, so maybe sell the child maybe to some Buddha lunch or whatever. You know people say that. When they touch a place, they got the child, and the priest tell them not to touch the child. So could you explain for us what that seems to be or what that is by telling the people not to touch the child, and he had to come to pray for the child first before they touch the child.
Okay, thank you, caller. So Father Paul, let's take this one quickly, and then we want Scholar has something that he wants to throw in.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure why the priest would have told them that, if he would have told them that. So I'm really not in a position to explain.
Okay. Scholar coming in.
It's in line with what Livingston had asked before, you know, as it relates to what priests are capable, and I guess now we know it's a myth, based on what Father Paul has said. It's a myth. For us, we're thinking, just as what Father Paul said, Father Paul and them is not good priests. Them old priests and them was the real priests. Father Paul and them is pop priests. Yeah. They're real priests. If you can do things, they're not good priests. But there has always been a myth, Father Paul. Well, I'll say it's a myth now because I said it. But there has always been the concept of Saint Benedict. And what Saint Benedict means for people. What was Saint Benedict? Because I always heard about Saint Benedict when I was a little fella. And was that concept then a wrong concept?
What was the concept about Saint Benedict? You said it was? What was the concept?
Saint Benedict is some place you go in where...
Oh, Mount Saint Benedict.
Well, I don't even know if Mount.
Okay, yeah. Mount Saint Benedict.
Saint Benedict.
Yes, Mount Saint Benedict.
Saint Benedict is where you're going to put a light on people when you go in Saint Benedict.
Wait,
sweet light. Yeah, sweet light taking them.
Man, that way you're allowed to be a priest, man.
Mount Saint Benedict is located on a hill in, I think in St. Augustine.
Yes.
It will be close to the Tunapuna area. And it's a wonderful, beautiful hill. I mean, just beautiful. Mm-hmm. But there is a monastery. And the monastery, like you have different monasteries, and it's a Benedictine monastery. In other words, it formed after the rules of Saint Benedict, who lived how many years ago, I can't tell you off my head right now. But again, you're right. I mean, if you go to Mount Saint Benedict, all you see is these poor monks serving people, counseling, praying, saying masses, listening to their troubles, giving them guidance and so on. But a lot of people will say, I go to Mount Saint Benedict to do this and to do that, and that happened. I don't know that. Actually, the seminary that I studied at, it was built by the same Benedictine monks. And it's just a little lower down to the monastery. And so we were always up at the monastery, and there was nothing strange happening there. But one of the things about the Catholic Church is that as an ancient church, like ancient institutions, you will see also some rituals, a lot of symbolism and so on. That tends to evoke a sense of aura and mystery. And people tend to say, yes, there is something different and absolutely different. At the same time, I'm not telling you that God does work in mysterious ways in places, especially in the history of religion. There have always been places where particular people have had particular experience. Jacob, for example, in a place called Shechem. And so the ancestors would always go back there and pray there and have pilgrimages there and so on and so forth. There are many places around the world, Fatima, Lourdes, and so on, where the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, is believed to have, of Jesus, is believed to have appeared, and people make a lot of pilgrimages in those places. And mysterious things do happen in those places. But again, colored with our mindsets and our belief, what we impose on it. I remember when we were growing up, some of the older people were said to have the ability to throw curse on others. And they will say, foi malwes. Now I suspect that's Creole, but I don't know what they mean by that. And they would say to the four corners of the earth, Wali is north, south, east, and west. And it was a curse, it was said, that was thrown on a particular child or something like that. And then later on, you see that child goes to the psychiatric ward or he kills somebody, and they say, well, because of the curse. Well, I don't know whether it is because of the curse. I mean, listen, if I am thieving, I grew up thieving all the time. It doesn't take a rocket science to know I'm likely to end up in prison. When in prison, I get trained in the business of thieving more and engage in violence and so on and so forth. And then, I end up with very violent crimes afterwards. It's not necessarily because a priest or because some old lady put a curse on somebody. It's not necessarily.
Okay, well, folks, we've been joined for a few minutes by Dr. Kellen Bob. He wanted to get in to make a couple comments. So, Dr. Bob, let's hear your thoughts on what you've heard so far.
You're muted.
I think you're muted. Mm-hmm.
Maybe the OB had muted my device there. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, first of all, I've been a critic. I've been a public critic of Father Gerard Paul. He may or may not know me, but he knows my family very well from St. David's in Pomerose. But I have to compliment Father Gerard Paul for demystifying a number of the prejudices that have been formed through many centuries about notions of African spirituality. And what he's done here this evening is to be able to acknowledge that African spirituality, whether it's voodoo, whether it's Orisha, whether it's Shango Baptist, spiritual Baptists, you have the Santerias in Cuba. These are all different faith traditions and faith practices. Okay? And as he also made the point about the role of the Catholic Church in colonialism and slavery, the role of the Roman Catholic Church in using faith for evil. Because to me, the enterprise of colonialism and slavery could not have been possible without the institution of the Roman Catholic Church, without the institution of the Anglican Church, and other institutions that were, to me, the first cousins of that enterprise, which also served to demonize African spiritual practices. So I was glad to hear Father Paul acknowledge the role of the church in doing that. And if we talk about religion and faith as a force for evil, one can argue that in every faith tradition, you have good, as he said, and you have evil. What I would
By the way, I don't text. If you allow me to cut you, can't argue that is just a fact.
Well, yes, it is
a plain fact. Yeah.
I'm using.
I understand.
Using it, yeah. But the point is, our people will still, after watching the program tonight, they would go to the Bible and quote verses from the scripture and said, well, we should not be practicing this, we should not be practicing that. It is still evil in their mind, which goes to the idea of how we were indoctrinated by religion, in the ways in which we view one particular faith tradition as the superior faith tradition. And anybody who believes differently, then they're somehow problematic. And that's a problem in our society, where if you are not Christian, as Grenada loves to claim they're a Christian society, I say they do it so conveniently. Because to me, there are a lot of people who shout, Lord, 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 are some of the worst people that I have encountered. And I can speak from personal experience. But I'm glad that you were able to demystify these issues around how we view our African spiritual traditions and practices. And perhaps we can go further by encouraging the decriminalization of spiritual Baptist traditions and practices, which are still on the books as criminal in Grenada. Trinidad and Tobago did it before. Now they have Spiritual Shelter Baptist Liberation Day over there. And I believe that we can do the same in Grenada. So thank you, Father Paul, for making those very important points. And I honestly believe we also need to have conversations with our spiritual Baptist brothers and sisters, or Ifa brothers and sisters, bring in our Orisha brothers and sisters in Grenada, though they might be in a minority, but I think they also need to be in this conversation. It's very critical that we have them as well.
Well, we will be discussing religion.
If you allow me to stick a point, one of the things we don't talk about, the slaves were able to come through slavery, the very torturous, harsh, and murderous ethos of slavery for over 400 years. They were able to come through it, sane, good people. The retention of the strong West African family structure as a result, partly as a result of their religious practices. Their religious practices is what gave them strength, part of what gave them strength to endure the horrors of slavery. Because whatever they call their gods, whatever systems they had, it's amazing. When you go to and I know I'm long, so let me be very brief and end here now. When you go to the book of Revelation, John, I think, is in chapter 12. He goes up into the heavens. He has a vision on the Isle of Patmos. And he says, I see a great number of people impossible to count, from every tribe, from every nation, from every part of the world. So God is a cosmic God. Jesus Christ is not limited to those who are the ones who can hold a Bible and say Jesus is Lord. St. John says God is love, and he who lives in love lives in God and God in him, whether he profess God or not. So our religion, our thing, it's the kind of thing we always like to think we're superior. The white man think he's superior to the black. You go to China and the Chinese touch your skin, you're ready one day if you're back, they try to press. I've heard people go to China, press their finger to see they can't believe it. We always thinking we're superior. And the biggest thing in the world is, the greatest thing for us is to be humble people and not people full of
So So I just want to make a final comment here, Father Paul, and something you mentioned earlier. You said when, for example, people don't understand, and we were talking about religions, let's say the Christian religion, when they don't understand something, they see it as evil, or another religious practice. If it doesn't, suit their liking or whatever, it is evil. Could we agree then that because lots of people do not understand Obia, they think it is evil? Or because of what is practiced, and I said it last week, maybe the manner in which they do what they do, they are considered evil.
Yeah, because one of the persons, and I think what you all brought to the fore last week and today again is very enlightening. I grew up in an ethos where once you say Obia, it's all bad. You understand what I'm saying? And but the fact is that we have talked about the indoctrination one, and it's the associations we make. The associations we make, it's all about spoiling a child, putting a spell on somebody, giving somebody a big foot, making somebody start walk the street and so on. Well, if that's what it is bad. But if you can talk to speak to other aspects in terms of the entirety of a religion, that just does not show the ugly face, then you're right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's take one last phone call because time is quickly going. We Culture, good evening.
Good evening. Can anybody commit Obia, especially a priest or whoever you choose to call him or her? Can anyone commit Obia? First of all.
Okay, thank you. And just a correction, caller. You ain't commit Obia, you walk Obia. You walk Obia. Father Paul, he asked if anyone could do it.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about the bad side then.
Well,
right?
Clearly. Mm-hmm.
Anybody. As I said, I mean, it's not a secret that there have been priests and pastors and high clergy people, all the way from biblical times who have engaged in witchcraft, Obia, sorcery, whatever you call it. They've been engaged in that, in the occult and so on. There are people who are big in church and they are Satanists. There are people who are big in the clergy and they are Satanists. So again, it's just, I remember when we were doing, very briefly, when we were doing a course called Systematic Theology at seminary, there was a nun called Sister Diane Jackdale, Indian Trinidad woman. And she spent about 3 weeks when we were dealing with the phenomena of evil, the topic of evil. And she was talking about our propensity as human beings. We have a great propensity for good and also a very great propensity for evil. And that's why you can trace the lives of many of us who started very good and ended up very ugly. So it's something for us to all take to heart. Some of us might be scoffing and turning our faces about the evil, about the Obia man and this, that, and the other. But there's so many other ways in which we commit evil every day of our lives. In fact, we are part and parcel of very evil systems. That we do well in those evil systems ourselves, and we don't look upon those that are completely oppressed and dehumanized by those same systems. So it's interesting. It's important, I think, to bear in mind our capacity, all of us, for evil. It just don't point the Obia man, and we become more conscious of how we ourselves are engaged in the ring of things that are
evil,
contrary to God.
Okay. Well, Father Paul, I have to thank you here because that's all the time we have for this evening. I really do appreciate you coming on, and sharing your perspective on this whole issue with us. And there's a lot to take away from that. But let me allow the team and yourself to make your final comments. So let's start with Reese.
Well, I'm going to take some Facebook comments before I give my friendly comments because I think they're important.
Yes.
Well, Godfrey, you always leave it up to Guelph people or the associated Guelph people like Tessa Barry to come with something kind of Guelph related. Anyways, she's asking, what were the stories long time? Yeah, she's associated. She was banned. They're Guelph people. Anyways, Tessa Barry is saying, what were the stories long time with Lakwa and Obia? You know Lakwa is from Guelph. Scholar, do you know? And I'm glad she's asking Scholar and not me. So we're moving on. We have Anna Mitchell. She's saying, Father, you always speak your truth. It brings to mind that certain priests are chosen to perform an exorcism. Cynthia is saying, if the folks know that about Obia and elections, maybe if they want to win, they should try it. Jose is saying, I remember in Sotes, a young man who broke the pole box in the RC church, and it was said the priest passed hand on him, and after that he never stopped stealing for years, breaking into people's houses, going in and out of jail until he was killed. My question is, can Obia reverse when it is given to someone by a priest? Tessa is saying it would be interesting to hear from the African priest on how they separate their cultural experiences with their Catholic teachings. I agree, Tessa. That's a very interesting question. Tessa is saying again, Scholar, been there in St. Augustine, Trinidad. Lovely place. Netfa is saying, I live close to Mount St. Benedict. The view is everything. Jose is saying again, Father Paul, do you ever involve in any part of exorcism, whether good or bad? Bernard Khalid is saying, why do Christians practice the same practices which is referred to Obia? Example, putting water in front of their doors before going to bed and leaving their Bibles open on Psalms 23. They ain't no Christians, I can tell you. Tahira is saying some places are sacred. Melvin Putin is saying Mount St. Benedict is like a university. A lot of monks there, science and teachers, black magic. All name came about in the 16th year to be a little African culture and justify slavery. It's say to see in this time and age our people keep on putting down our culture. I was in museum in Scotland and the history is the same. Obia. G. Ed is saying, I agree they should be included. Let's see. We have Melvin again saying, but the Baptist faith started in St. Vincent and Grenada, and it became a religion in Trinidad. It went around the world by the Buffalo Soldiers. He's also saying, Dr. Bob on point. We need to look at the history before condemning. Melvin is saying again, Jesus said, if you believe in me, you will do great things. Then me, he raised the dead, the blind, and many others. Netfa is liking the perspective of Dr. Bob. Jose is saying this is not the views of We Culture, but Honesto, I think the Catholic Church responsible for the misconception of the African practice and continues to this day until we break that spell and reclaim what is truly our culture and practices. Otherwise, the slave ship still will be sailing with religion to the homeland. We have Bernard is saying, get some spiritual Baptists on the program and stop wasting our time. This program is not that informative. And Jose is saying, I think we need Pastor King in that series. So that is what I am seeing here for the Facebook platform. Now, in terms of my closing comments, very good show as usual. I don't even know if we have ended it. It was supposed to be a 3-part series. As you can see from the viewers, everybody has questions. They think that there are certain guests that we can bring on. But I am thinking that since we are going to be discussing religion at some point, maybe a lot of these questions could be covered within this series about religion. And I'm sure it's going to be as heated as the topic of Obia. Pastor Jared, I've heard quite a lot about you. You seem to be, how can I put it? That different priest. I'm just going to say that different priest. One that seems to be very honest about truth and facts and about history. One who speaks his mind. And when I meet people like that, I tend to be more trusting of people of the cloth when they can admit to certain things and, speak freely about it and not just try to cover it up and move on. So I'm grateful for this whole encounter here today. Dr. Bob, as usual, he always comes with a historical perspective on things, and I thought we had a really good show tonight. So thank you very much, and thank you to our viewers.
Yes, indeed. Doc, your closing comments?
Well, let me just say it was a pleasure to have my Father Paul here tonight. I believe I was rather enlightened. It was a different perspective. I recognize that I was more quiet tonight than my usual. There is just one nagging area that I would like to clear from my perspective, and it has to do with the whole idea of phobia, whether phobia is good or bad. And in my mind, phobia from our cultural perspective is generally bad. Phobia is generally evil. But what we say that the African spirituality, not all people that practice that was tabooed, like the Shango Baptist or the spiritual Baptist. You cannot put everybody in the same cloth and say that that whole practice is evil. So there are strategies, as Father Paul said tonight, there are strategies within every religion where there is good and bad. And so witchcraft is not redeeming. And so I believe phobia is not redeeming. But there are aspects of people that do the same practice that is redeeming, that is enlightening, that is there to, that we shouldn't put in the same bandwagon. So I think, but tonight there was a lot that we were able to divulge, and I'm glad that we had such an enlightened guest to help us on our journey. So thank you. Good night, Father Paul.
Good night. Yes, my brother Livingston.
Scores, you muted still?
Yes, I did. Obia. I just want to join this here and with that to thank Father Paul for community program. I expected no less, and I don't know Father Paul well. Maybe I don't know him well, but I know him well, right? So I sort of could have envisioned, and I knew that Kellan was going to be surprised. The only thing Kellan can do here tonight is to apologize to Father Paul.
Yes,
I thought that he could do. I thought he could because he had a mindset of Father Paul that didn't play out at all. And in fact, most of what Kellan said last week was actually echoed by Father Paul in terms of African spirituality and so on. And I think that sort of made Kellan's Father Paul in a different light. Excellent program. Once again, very enlightening. And I promised myself, as Father Paul would have said, that I would have behaved myself and drink a little wine. I ain't drink the little wine yet. But I thank God, Father Paul, that you came and you were so enlightened on a subject that is sort of taboo, and to hear it from the perspective of a priest. The only thing I am sort of disappointed in is that
he can walk the thing.
He can do the thing,
Well, you know that.
While in my view and in my estimation, I like you as a priest because of the way you articulate and so on. But on the other hand, that thing, no.
I don't get that. What are you disappointed about?
I got it to Congo. I just have that.
Father Paul, set them straight for me.
I don't get it. I don't get what he's saying that he's disappointed about.
I think he's riding
the thing, but you cannot walk the thing. You know how to do the thing.
I think
one thing and then Father Jones.
What thing, man? Call the thing and name the thing have a name, man.
Listen to me. Them fellas afraid. Let me tell you, Father Paul. Them men feel you can capture the spirit.
Oh, that's what he means.
Yeah. Tell him you could capture his spirit, no, man. Tell him you capture our kind of spirit already.
Let me talk that in private.
But
let me talk that in private.
Father Paul, you can make
I mean, seriously, we can talk that in private.
Make your closing remarks, Father Paul.
Yeah, so I enjoyed the program and thanks for inviting me. I thought it was particularly enlightening that you were saying that when Livingston raised the point that Obia has its positive because the predominant
African
I never thought of Obia as a religion, quite frankly.
No, Father Paul, I'm saying African spirituality.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, well, I totally agree that.
Obia itself is negative. Obia itself is evil.
Oh, okay. So we are on that.
Yeah.
We are on that. Yes. No. When I was at seminary in my third year, we did a program. Again, we did a course called Comparative Religion. And I was so fascinated to learn about voodooism and all of these things. And then, all the negative thing was just brushed out. Sometimes I wonder which seminary those other guys went to, because, we learned a lot of good things and a lot of good stuff came out that we could, enough was given to us to grow and to have our minds and to have our own perspective on things. But back again, and I think that's a very, very important point to understand that one of the things, a lot of you know about Mahatma Gandhi. He's an icon for so many of us.
Yes.
But his religion is not a Christian religion. It's not a Christian religion. So the idea that if we don't belong to your group, in the 60s around, I think more so after the Second Vatican Council, the church became aware and started to recognize other religions. We had serious laws. We had come a long way, We had laws that you couldn't even visit the other churches. A friend couldn't invite you to another church. And that's where they started to promote what is called ecumenism. They're seeking to know other people's faith, to understand other people's faith, and having that ecumenical dialogue with other people. So we have come a long way. We still have a very long way to go. And I think at the end of the day, most religions, and I think Christianity in particular, will always keep on saying it's the best thing on the face of the earth. So you will have that happening, but I think we've come a long way in terms of the dialogue. Final point I want to make, because we have talked a lot about Obia, it's important, again, I'm stressing what I've said before, that look at our world. Look at our world. Look at the sufferings of our world. Look at the fact that, millions of children go to bed hungry. Look at the fact that, there is so much exploitation, no end to it. South Africa is one of the most painful ones for me. We had apartheid, and as if South Africa has not changed. Mm-hmm. If you realize, if you look at history, there's a lot of good things going on. I'm not being negative. I'm not a negative person. But there is so much pain and suffering in our world every day, every moment. It speaks of our propensity and our involvement in evil. And one of the prayers we say in the Catholic Church is, we ask God forgiveness for our omission, things we should do and we don't do. I've been attending to more than 5 years to an old lady who's 97 years this month. And she lives in a community there, and nobody looks after her. Nobody looks after her. She says to me, Father, I don't have neighbors, and I have neighboring houses. Neighboring peoples, not neighbors. we can talk about the evil in the United States with all the bombings. We can talk about the evil of big nations. We can talk about Israel. That is easy to pinpoint. But right here in our communities, we are talking about church and Christianity and going to heaven, and we often don't care about one another. That in itself is evil. I may not be an Obia man, but I may do a lot of things, and there are a lot of things that I should have done, should do to enhance humanity and to make and to give people a real experience of life that I failed to do. And I think we all have to think about that. It's easy to point out the Obia man and to point out people whose faults and whose weaknesses and whose evils are public, but most of us, ours are private, and we go around keeping a nice status and a nice aura around us, like priests like myself, and then we bad like Bobo.
Really, real Obia people. Thank you, Father Paul.
Really Obia people.
Father Paul, thank you very much. My closing comment, just to move away from that, I've been following a lot of the comments, and I was particularly amused by, I think it's Karen Charles, that's her name. I hope I get the pronunciation correct. Risi? Very early up, she seemed to have been disgruntled with something about the program, but I noticed up to the end, and she did say, she did threaten to go and watch Mikey live, but she's still there. Thank you, Karen. That's what We Culture does. That's what We Culture does. So, guys, that's all the time we have. Thank you so very much. We've gone past it a lot, but very interesting discussion, lovely perspective. I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually looking forward now to start our discussion on religion. Because I think this program has basically steered us in that direction. So, we'd see what happens for next week. So thank you very much. Thanks to all our Facebook listeners and viewers of GBN TV, our YouTube channel, K105. Thank you all very much for staying with us. Join us next Friday for another We Culture. Good night, everyone, and all the best.